cup at a time. Yeah, this is tea time. Yeah, making a difference. One cup at a time. So be sure to grab your tea, grab a seat, and tune in to Miss Liz. Tea time. Making a difference. One cup at a time. Tea time, yeah. Tea time.
Wow, welcome. It is afternoon tea. That's right. We're here for the second time today. That's right. 2023, we're doing something different. We're doing 3 tea times in one day. And Miss Liz is here with her second incredible tea time with Vivianne Knebel. That's right, a real princess, a real Cinderella. We're going to have some sweet tea today. So we're going to enjoy some good old fairy tale romance and all of that good stuff. So before we get started, we're going to do the disclaimer, we're going to do some bio, and we're going to get Vivianne back in the studio with Miss Liz, and we're going to spill some sweet tea to this afternoon. The disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live shows. Miss Liz myself is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment, please grant StreamYard permission to see your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that the content brought forward for any Tea Time hosted by myself, Miss Liz, is always brought forward in good faith. However, may bring forward dialogue and opinions that are not representative of my platform. The facts and information are perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All Tea Time guests and audience participants are responsible for using their good judgment in taking any action that may relate to the discussion. The content brought forward may include discussions for some where they may be emotionally at risk. It is significant to know that this show is engaging in a discussion forum only to offer and inspire awareness and connection, and is not providing therapeutical advice. If you have any questions about this disclaimer or the panelist discussion, you may freely contact me, Miss Liz, through my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com. Moving forward, should you choose to voluntarily participate in today's show in any aspect, I, Miss Liz, welcomes you, and should you decide that this show is not made for you at this time, I respect that choice, and I will see you at a later show at a later time. There we go. Disclaimers out of the way. Now let's get the incredible bio of Vivianne Knebel here, and then I'm going to have her jump in and share some good old sweet tea and a beautiful, beautiful, inspiring story. So Vivianne Knebel was born allegedly in 1943 in the epicenter of Nazi power, Berlin, Germany. Vivianne, free spirit and strong-willed mother, Marija, I hope I'm saying it right. If not, I'll get her to fix it. Fought to keep her alive among falling bombs and Soviet attacks. After the end of World War II, with much of Berlin razed to the ground, Vivianne came to know her poverty and constant hunger. As a teenager, she immigrated to Canada, but in her new homeland times became so desperate that she had to beg for money to eat. After dropping out of school to find work, Vivianne became the victim of sexual harassment, spiraling into depression. She attempted to take her life, but her miraculously saved by a 6-year-old child, an unimportant girl, tells a story of challenges overcomes and a life fully lived. and we're going to understand a little bit more on where the Cinderella comes in. So we're going to get Vivian in here, and I truly apologize for any mistakes I've made or grammar, but I'll get Vivian in here. Welcome, Vivian.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Thank you for having me, and Happy New Year to you as well, and
Oh well,
everyone
thank you
else.
so much. And as I was reading in the bio, you come from another war. And this morning we had the Ukraine war. So there's a lot of similarities, but there's different wars, right? Different stories. So I want to get into your story now, Vivian. Where it all began and how you got to where you are and how you became the Cinderella.
Yes, that came later on for sure, because I had many strikes against me from the get-go. You know, I was born at the height of Nazi Germany in Berlin, in the epicenter. And I was an illegitimate daughter of a fiercely devoted mother. And it was very tough. You know, my story actually is a story that is growing up of a child growing up in the aftermath of World War II in Berlin. The hardship, you know, everything that we had to go through. And the Cinderella, I turned into the Cinderella after walking that long path of self-discovery and self-fulfillment. And so it was a long path, and then my whole life turned around.
But that's how it is, right? We need that story. We need that past in order to have our present and future. And
So true. Yes. Yes.
that's why
We
I really wanted
definitely.
to have your story on Tea Time, Vivian, because your story is really inspiring for a lot of reasons, and we have a lot of similarities because my Oma comes from Germany,
Ah,
so and
oh,
she's the lady that got me started with my tea. So there's a lot of things and connections, and that's the alignment. So I really wanted to have your story shared on Tea Time.
thank you. Thank you. Yes, well, I tell you, it was tough. You know, being born as an illegitimate child in during Nazi Germany, I was not given a nationality because the law was such that the child gets the nationality of the father. And since I was illegitimate, I had no nationality. So that was strike one, you know, no sense of belonging. And then also having to go through this aftermath of the war, which I mostly remember, destruction. And so I went through all that. And after a while, you know, when I turned 13, my mother decided to immigrate to Canada to seek a better life. And so I remember getting on this ship. As the ship made its way into the water, I vowed to myself, I looked back at my homeland, I said, one day I'll return, and return successfully. I will wear a beautiful suit, and you will not even recognize me. You know, as a child, that was my imagination. But I tell you this, I did manifest my destiny already right then and there without being aware of it, you know. And I walked that long path to self-discovery. It was tough in Canada. The first year we went hungry again because the man my mother married, my stepfather, he could not find work that first winter. He was not in command of the English language, and he could not, even though he was a hard worker, he was um, a tailor, a custom tailor by profession. But my mother, being so resourceful, you know, in Germany during the war and after the war, she worked in the black market just to get food on the table for her two children, her two daughters. And so she was very resourceful, and she took me by the hand in Canada. We walked into a church, and I explained our plight to the priest in the few English words that I knew, and he sympathetically handed us $35 to buy the staples, food, rice, you know, flour, in order to make it. So that's how it started in Canada. And then at the age of 14, I asked my mother, I'd like to go to work and support the family. And of course, there was this child labor law. You could not just quit school, but I got a special permit and I was allowed to start work. So I actually had no real youth. I grew up like overnight. Then I had a job at a dentist, which was very promising because he was going to teach me to become a dental assistant. But I had some bad experiences there. One day, his a friend walked into the office when the doctor was not there, and he sexually abused me. And I was so innocent, so young. It made its mark on me. And I had to quit that job. I said, "You cannot stay there." I quit the job. I started working in a 5 and 10 cent store, Woolworth, behind the lunch counter, making sandwiches with care and heart. And but I knew I had to do something more in order to improve my station in life, which I wanted to do so much. And I went to night school and learned typing and stenography, and landed a job eventually at Volkswagen Sales and Service. That iconic car dealership, the Volkswagen, that iconic car.
Yeah.
So VW, yeah. So I worked there, and but I became increasingly unhappy at the age of 17, working up there in the accounting department with women that were more than twice my age. There was no camaraderie, no connection. And I thought, all my efforts are in vain. And I spiraled into deep depression at the age of 17. And I had already bought a used car, which excuse me, I rented a garage, in a single garage in a duplex. And I heard that somewhere when you close the garage door and start the motor, then that carbon monoxide would render you unconscious and you would drift to your ultimate end. And that's what I did. When suddenly the little girl appeared, she must have been around 6 years old, and asked me, "What are you doing?" And I thought, where did she come from? I immediately stopped the motor, opened the garage door, and she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, immediately, I'm going to wash my car. And she disappeared through a side door. And later on, I thought, where did she come from? Well, she must have been the daughter of the owner. I never met the family from the owner of that duplex from whom I rented the garage. And so she must have come in that side door. It was meant to be. It was, I would say it was fate. I was supposed to go on, and I held on to a glimmer of hope. And what else could I do? And went on with my life, went back to my work, and eventually there was a position open downstairs in the service department, and I became the secretary of the service manager. And I was right there where the customers came in, and I already was feeling much better because there was a connection with other people. There was life. I needed that. And so I worked there as a secretary for the service manager. And one day a man walked in, bought a Porsche, and he became my husband.
Wow. See,
Yes.
you just never know where they are.
You never know. I don't know. It is fate. It is fate. But then he was also a German immigrant, and he we connected, and we married. Not a long time after that, maybe within 3/4 of a year, we got married. And he was always the wind beneath my wings. He believed in me, you know. He kind of treated me like I am doing everything I should be doing, and it opened possibilities for me and said, always encourage me to learn and grow. And it is amazing how you can you find hidden talents, but we need to apply ourselves, and I've always done that. I never shied away from work. My question was always, what can I do, before I expected to get something. I was not full of expectations. I always thought, what can I do first? And I applied myself, and I think that is what we need to do. We cannot take things for granted ever. If good things come our way, and I did that, applied myself in my marriage, in everything I did, and my husband also encouraged me to take flying lessons. He was going to buy a plane, so I took flying lessons. I soloed, and I ran a marathon. I did a number of things, so I grew into this person, and I've always been such a seeker and a searcher, and I've always wanted to understand the deeper meaning of life. And so I studied the wisdom of the great philosophers and great minds over many years, and I applied their wisdom into my life, and this is how I developed. And my story, actually, it was not just it was a story of survival. um, it is started with tragedy and ended in triumph. It is I My husband did not just encourage me to live, but to thrive. So I was very lucky, but I managed my luck
Yeah.
well.
Well, do you think, Vivian, because you came from a country, a poverty country, and you had to fight for your life, that survival instinct since a little girl, do you think that that's what kept you going all this time?
Absolutely, absolutely, Liz. I think all the adversities, all the challenges in our life make us resilient. They make us resilient. I think also, in order to to really appreciate, we need to see the other side.
Yeah,
We need to know what it means not to have, and then you fully understand. I think this is very necessary, and I tell you, there is no one who is ever going to be free of challenges and adversities. Life is a cycle of ups and downs, constant cycle of ups and downs. We will have to face them. There is no life without it. But how we cope with it, that is the difference.
and I
We
think
have a
where
choice.
I think, Vivian, that's where we resonate with the stories because we both have gone through things, right? And I feel that connection between me and you, and that Cinderella story. We all want to be Cinderellas as little girls, right?
Yes,
And sometimes we don't get that Cinderella story. We get that the Cinderella before the Prince Charming comes,
yeah, yeah,
you know. But we
yeah.
have to give that hope to others out there by saying, you know what, we've lived through this. You can do it too, you know.
Right. Liz, you're so right. We must never lose hope.
Yeah,
Always cling to hope that, even in the adverse situations, I always still saw the beauty, the good that life has to offer, that is around the corner. It is there. You just have to sometimes wait for a long time, work hard to get there, but the beauty of life is always there. You just have to look for the good, look for that tiny crumb of good, even when you're almost drowning in chaos.
yeah,
Look for that little good and focus on that, and thoughts increase. What you become, what you think. There is so
exactly.
much power in thought.
And that's why I always say, let's live on our stories, not in them. Because when we live
Right,
in them, we're playing victim. We're playing, oh, blame me. Oh, this happened to me. That happened. But we don't see any direction to move forward. You know,
right.
when
But
we're
you know
in
what?
when we're in it, we're stuck. We're stale,
Right,
right? We're like a
right.
stale cup of tea. So when we're on our stories, we can actually move forward and we can give that hope to others, and we can say, you know what, I lived through it. Look at my story as inspiration. Look at my story as hope. Do I have it all together today? No, but I'm still continuing on and still have hope that it can continue to get better. And
Yes, as long as we do our best, and we can use our hurtful, our painful moments or times. We can use those as a powerful tool to help others.
exactly,
That experience. I This is what I'm doing now. I also have my own podcast, and I interview people, and I we talk about emotions, and I went through them all, and that is why I say, I want to be there for other people that feel suppressed and defeated. How can I help? Even if you reach just one person, you've already made a positive difference.
exactly. One person at a time. Let's stop with the big crowds. Let's start with the little crowds. You know, it's
Yeah,
that one person. It's that that little girl that came to you was one little girl. But as you were sharing that story, Vivian, I was thinking, do you think maybe it could have been your inner child that was saying, "Hey, you got more to live for," because you said you never seen where she went? Then do
Yeah,
you think that
no,
it might have
she
been
all of a
something
sudden was got
inside of you?
that can be psychologists or would probably question that as well. No, that girl was in front of me. This was not an imagination. This little girl was in front of me, and she just came in, and I just out of nowhere, because I didn't pay attention to a side door. I just said, I have this garage to myself. I'm closing this door. I'm starting the motor. I'm doing this, and all of a sudden, I think it was fate. I really do
Yeah,
believe it was meant to be. I truly believe in a higher power. We are all part of that higher power. You can call it whatever you want to call it, God, or name it, give it any name. But I truly believe we are part of a higher power, and we carry that power within us. And
absolutely.
when we know that, then we connect with it. And when you connect with it, you become powerful.
Absolutely. So you mentioned that you do a podcast. So tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Well, my podcast is based on my second book. My first book is the From Rubble to Champagne, which was turned into a documentary film. And my second book is more philosophical. It is it is called Lessons Learned About Life and Love, Living with Intention, and the Wisdom of Great Minds, which I've studied, and I apply it, and I want to teach people how to get how to find that life that is meaningful, and to feel fulfilled, because I have that inner dignity of living a loved and truly fulfilled life, and I wish that for everyone.
Absolutely. And that's a nice one. Lessons and learns. Because and the emotions. We really need to start talking about emotions. We talk
Yes,
about feelings a lot, but we don't talk about emotions. And there's a big difference, a huge difference. And I think we need to start talking about the emotions. Why do we feel this way? Why do things trigger us? Is there something that's telling us within ourselves that we've gone through or that we've forgotten because of trauma? Coming from the war, I'm sure you have some form of trauma as well, Vivian, that
I
you
had
had
to
to.
work that out. I had to work through that. I had, I was, I was really, my self beliefs were very limiting. I had very low self esteem, uh, and I was shackled by my self limiting beliefs. They kept me in a prison. And one day I said to myself, you know what? I have something beautiful to offer the world. I'm not what, when people look down on you, like I didn't do well in school. Well, I was very intelligent. I just had a different map. I had a different method. Yeah.
You-
It,
yeah, you're
I
like
had
me.
a,
I'm just a different cup of tea, and a lot of people are like, "How did you figure that out?" Oh, I just got my own way of figuring it out.
yes, yes, yes. We're all individuals. And today they pay attention to that, and children are put in a special school
Yeah,
because they have a different method of learning. But at that time, it was just survival,
yeah,
and merely just survive. And if you didn't get it, well, then you're out. Actually, the teacher condemned me dumb to my mother. Can you imagine that? And you know what that does? That doesn't help your self-esteem either. So it was just one thing after another. That's why I had such low self-esteem, self-limiting beliefs. And then, as I thought and searched and I thought, you know what? This does not identify me. This is not me. No, and I worked toward, and I really searched within myself and found out who I really was, what I'm all about, and worked on that. I would learned to work on my strengths and build on that, and also to be positive and optimistic, because when we are positive and optimistic, we cheer us on ourselves on in everything we do in life.
And it surprises people when we're optimistic because we've had such a hard life that people are like, how can you be so optimistic? How can you have hope for the future when you've gone through this, and this? You know, they
That's where
question
hope
that.
comes in. Yes, that's where hope comes in.
Yeah,
And just look around you. I think if you really pay attention to nature, look what God gave us. Look at the sky, look at the flowers opening up. Look at nature. It's so honest. And I feel closest to God when I'm in nature. That is, you just plant a seed, for instance. You want to plant some flowers or vegetables, whatever. Tiny little hard seed, you put it in the ground and watch life take hold in front of your eyes. Now, is that not amazing?
yeah,
And you want to tell or people, some people don't believe there's a higher power. There is a higher power, absolutely. I believe that everything is a miracle. Some people believe nothing is a miracle. I believe that everything is a miracle. You go through life with open eyes, pay attention, attention, attention to what's going on around you, attention to your fellow man, to their emotions, and suck up the good, soak up the good, not the negative. Let go of negative emotions, let go of it, and concentrate what's good here. This is what I do, really. I just really, I see what's bad out there. I see what's going on. I see the history repeats itself. You just had a guest from the Ukraine, and that just shows you that this war, Hitler's war, is the same as Putin's war. There's so many similarities, and so this misery just continues. It continues, but we have to be here when we went through it. I think we need to remind people, keep the story alive, and
exactly.
remind people, do not follow blindly. Trust the integrity of your own mind, and do not follow blindly. There's all this propaganda in Hitler's Germany, and also in Putin's war in Russia. All that propaganda keeping people in the dark, and telling lies. Think for yourself.
Exactly.
Think for yourself. So there's a
Well,
lot
it's
to
like
be
we said
learned.
this morning, right, Vivian? We were talking about the war. What is the outcome of this war? What is the purpose for it? It's like
It
we had said, talked about fireworks. What is the purpose of a firework? You know, a
Yeah,
beautiful show in the sky for 15, 20 minutes, but a lot of people are triggered by these fireworks. A lot of people are scared of fireworks. Animals are scared of fireworks. So
yeah,
why are they there for? And this is what we were talking about war. Why is war there for? What is the
yeah.
purpose of war?
I
Like you
think
said,
it is.
Hitler and now Putin. When's the next? Like, let's stop the war and start living for each other.
Absolutely, because we're all really interconnected to one another. We're all actually one. And when you understand that we're really deeply interconnected to one another, you will treat your fellow man a lot better. You will treat all form of life. You only in a good way, because you only see the unfolding of God in all form of life. You're incapable of hurting anyone if you really understand that we're all interconnected to one another.
Yeah. So now let's get into a little bit of the Cinderella. How did that happen? And tell us the
Well, I tell
Cinderella
you,
story.
yes, my husband believed so much in me and my life. He made wise investments, and so he was financially very successful, became very successful, and I got to live the life of luxury. But I also always felt I want to learn more and I want to give back. That was my main interest. And when my husband turned 80, I decided, you know what, I'm going to write my life story, which is from rubble to champagne, because that's actually what it was. I literally came out of the rubble and live with champagne now. And that was my life. So I wrote this book as a token of appreciation for my husband's 80th birthday, to thank him for all that he has done for me, for all the possibility he has given me, and believing in me mostly. So I wrote this was my first book, and then I wrote the second book, Lessons Learned About Life and Love. And then my life story actually was turned into a documentary film. And when they came and they filmed my story, I, I just went back into the past. I took the viewer by the hand, like, come with me. I take you into my past. And I just reflected, went all the way back and reflected that it is a great historical and very historical and educational for young people. And it's a great way to tell your story. And it
Absolutely.
actually, gives people, offers people a window into the lives of real people. How the 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 German people also suffered, how they were affected by the war. All how they suffered to keep their families alive. And I mirrored the story through my mother, who as a single mom, went through all this with us.
Yeah. And there's so much that the the survivors went through because when my Oma came to Canada too, she had a hard time. She had the language barrier, and
Yeah,
you know, and
yeah,
the only thing that kept her going was tea. And so she served me a life of tea, and she told me, she said, you sit, you reflect, and you recharge and release. She said, because life is going to be hard, girl, but you got to keep going and you got to keep spilling that tea. And that's where the
yeah.
tea comes from for me. It's from my Oma from
That's
Germany, you know,
very
and
good.
and she kept
Yes.
me forward and moving forward and that's why when your publicist reached out to me, I was like, absolutely, I want this story on Tea Time because I'm just like, there's so much resemblance and there's so much memory of my Oma through your
Yeah,
story of
yeah. That's
how
very
she
touching.
continued from the rubbish to the, she kept everything very simple. She was big heart and she always wanted to give, and she went through so much, you know. And I think
Yeah,
that's what we need to do is we need to keep these stories alive, like you said. We need to keep people aware of what actually happened. We
yeah,
don't need the
yeah.
negative. We know the negative is there, but keep the stories alive and let the
Yes.
survivors tell those stories. Because if you haven't lived it, how dare you speak of it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Really, you're so right. And also, from what you tell me, your Oma had a lot of love, and love is the greatest power source. It's the greatest power in the world. If you have love in your heart, it is amazing. You have no room for negativity and hate. Love and hate cannot coexist.
Yeah,
They cannot coexist. So I think love, 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 that is so important. And I'm not just talking about, there's so many facets to love. There's the physical love you meet, and it's all beautiful. But there are also so many other facets which are really, really, they come into play more later on. That is uh, nurturing, a sense of responsibility, an awareness of service to another. Uh, it's a purpose. A purpose not just to do something for yourself that is good, but also to do something good for others. It's all about purpose. I think purpose is key.
oh, and I love that. I love that word, purpose. Because if we don't have purpose, what do we have, right? And purpose needs hope.
Exactly. Exactly. And purpose breeds resilience also. And you have to wake up. You cannot just say it's another day. Here's something, I have something to do, something that makes the world just a little bit better. Let's strive for that.
Yeah,
Let's strive to make the world just a little bit better. It starts with us, with
absolutely.
each individual. It starts in the family. And that's why I say really, and my greatest, when you ask, for instance, what is your cup of tea? Mine, I would say, is gratitude. My cup of tea is gratitude. Gratitude unlocks the fullness of life. When you're grateful, uh, those negative emotions turn into positive ones.
Yeah,
And you need to be grateful for any helping hand in your life, whether it's small or large. We need to be grateful. I can be immensely grateful because the way I started out and what is now, in my life is there needs to be gratitude. I have a profound sense of gratitude. It just, I don't know, it's just a beautiful thing to be grateful.
But when you have grateful, you accept abundance, right? And abundance
It
doesn't mean currency. Abundance means within the
no,
heart, within the love.
yes,
And like you were saying, we speak of love, but we don't actually understand the different components of love.
right, right, right. There's so many facets, and the gratitude. I think it really turns the ordinary into something special. You know, start with your cup of tea here, since your show is
Right?
is called, tea. You look forward to that. You have that cup of tea. You can just pour a cup of tea. Okay, I have a tea. Or you can say, now I'm pouring a cup of tea. Look, I'm so fortunate to have this cup of tea. I'm enjoying this. This is time for me to sit down with my cup of tea and reflect and think good thoughts. And so much comes out of that simple cup of tea.
Right.
And so it is with everything. When I put my bread on the table, uh, I cannot look at bread without being grateful because I know what it means not to have. There's so many things we take for granted, and I will never take anything for granted. I will
Well, and I
never
think
take
that's where
anything for granted.
your story really inspires, Vivian, is because you had nothing. You come from nothing. And then when you got everything, you were like still grateful for that slice of bread. You stay
Yes,
humble. And I think that's where we need to stay. We need to stay humble. No matter how big we get, how fancy and how rich we get, we need to stay humble within our hearts.
so true what you just said. We need to. I think even though I had so much success, I think I did not forget where I came from, and it kept me grounded. All these experiences kept me grounded, and they were miserable experiences, but I'm grateful for those miserable experiences as well because they turned me into who I am today.
Exactly. So
Otherwise, I might just be indulging.
let me ask you this, Vivian. If you could change anything in your life, would you?
If I could change anything in my life, would I? That's a very good question. Actually, I really am. I like the way my life has developed. I love who I am. I like myself for who I am within. Uh, I'm so grateful for everything that came my way. I'm grateful for the learning experience. No, I would like to just change people's situations sometimes when they are desperate. I would like to be there to help. That
And
is
I
out of my
appreciate
experience.
that answer, Vivian. And the reason why I asked that question is because a lot of people who have gone through a lot of trauma, a lot of struggles, a lot of hardship, people will ask them, "Will you change anything in your life?" And some people will actually say yes. When I look at it, if we did not go through what we went through, would we still have the same story to tell today?
Absolutely not.
Not.
No,
So if we
no.
change something from the past, we don't have the story for the future.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's very well put. Yes, yes. And also, um, I have such a beautiful life. Everything is going well, great. But I am going to turn 80 this year in May.
No
And
way.
you do think, yeah, you do, of course, only in number of years, because I'm totally full of energy and I have a zest and a love for life. And I will always have on my to-do list to be there, number one, for the ordinary occurrence. Every ordinary occurrence in each day, I want to be there, fully be there, and I want to learn and grow further. And I would also like to demonstrate or show other people how to age well instead of just getting old. I also write about this aging thing in my second book, Lessons Learned About Life and Love. There is an emerging energy to do something new, as because we have experience and the information, based upon the experience and information that we have, because we have lived so long, we're great problem solvers,
Yeah.
and And so I think we can always do something new, or be uh, a positive influence still, even when you're unhealthy. And you can, with your stories, or your speaking to young people, your stories, what you have experienced, and showing them the way. Or you can cook a nice meal for someone, help someone out. Or there's so many things you can do. I wrote my books. I became a writer all of a sudden. I never thought I could write, because all I had was 8 years of schooling, formal schooling. Of course, I bought every book you can imagine to grow and learn. If you pay attention and you want to learn, there are books out there. You can learn and study, and not just know, but apply your wisdom, apply your knowledge. It's like you have to apply what you know.
Exactly. And I think that's where we resonate with our stories, Vivian, because we continued on. We didn't let it defeat us. Yes, we were broken. Yes, we were down in the ground. But it's like you said, we rise, right? We
Yes,
we always continue on, no matter how hard it gets. And I think that's the story of the Cinderella. When we look at Cinderella, Cinderella struggled. She suffered, and then she found her Prince Charming, and but she continued on to be still Cinderella, the one that wanted to help. Even when she got in the castle, she was like, "How do I still help the servants? How do I still help the?" You know. And I think that's where the helping and the gratitude comes in, because we still
yes,
want to serve, because
yes.
we
And you
we
feel good
understand
about
the
yourself,
struggle.
right? You feel good inside. Uh, you really, if you don't let any hate enter your mind, or all this negativity, like you can keep your mind is your kingdom, and you are the master. You can decide, am I going to allow to let this negativity enter into my mind? Or every ugly thought is a part of your body. I
Exactly.
refuse to have this. And you you become a different person. You become a different person. You like yourself, and you're there for others, and that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. That is really wealth.
Yeah.
That is wealth. That is the true wealth. The material things are all beautiful. They're certainly not evil. They make us happy. Money gives us choices. It wields power to help others. That's all great. But material things are transient. They don't last. What I have lasts. And when everything is gone and my body is gone, I take my love with me. Love is what will always be there. I will always be an energy of love.
Absolutely. So let's do a little bit of your thriller for your movie that's coming out, and then we'll talk a little bit about that. Time is just flying by. We're just having a good old sweet time here,
Yes,
and
yes, yes.
so we're just gonna bring that up, and we're gonna share a little bit. So I'm just gonna put us to the side, and I'm gonna add this in, so we can get the viewers out there to hear a little bit about your story. So I'm not sure if we'll have time to play it all, but we're going to play a little bit. If you'd like to know more about it, the
Yeah.
intro and all the information will be in the description for all of the listeners out there. But let's get a little bit into the story of the unimportant girl, because I want to really know about that title as well a little bit. So
Yeah.
I'm going to just bring that up and let that play for a few minutes, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about the title and that. Let me get the.
Vivianne Knebel. I was born in Berlin, in the epicenter of Nazi Germany. I was an illegitimate daughter of a fiercely devoted mother, and I was also deemed stateless because I had no father. The German law was such that you get the nationality of the father. So here I was deemed stateless, and so I had a very hard beginning. all I really remember is seeing destruction. Looking at these rubble women, we call them. Always hunger, always cold. Everything seemed gray and dark.
Now I want to talk to you about the title. Where did you get that title?
Well, the title actually, I felt very unimportant. As I said earlier, I had very low self-esteem as a young girl, and I felt very unimportant. I felt looked down upon, being illegitimate, and all these things. So I felt unimportant, and yet I made so much out of my life, and it actually shows this girl is not unimportant. I turned out all right. Everything turned out all right. So uh, this is the what you see now is the result, of my life.
Yeah. And I like
I'm
the
an
word,
unimportant.
I like the title because it's a powerful, strong title. Because when you hear the title, you're like, there's going to be power to this story. Unimportant. It's like when I use the word broken. A lot of people
Mhm.
tell me, Miss Liz, why do you use the word broken? Because that's what Miss Liz is. Miss Liz is broken. But Miss Liz has a story that continues. We all need to break. We all need that message. And for you, it was that unimportant girl because you felt unheard and unseen,
Yes.
because of the life you lived. But look where you are today. You're our Cinderella. Like Miss Liz is Cinderella.
Yes.
I have a real life Cinderella, guys. That's how I work. you
Oh,
know. And I really want to thank you, Vivian, for taking the time to share that story with us and sharing the messages and tools and tips that you've shared with us during tea time. We do have some comments that are coming in, so I'm just going to pop them up. John, I'm sorry if your screen is frozen, and just try and maybe restart, refresh. Um, but and you can always catch the replay. Be sure to check these tea times out. You can watch them at any time you want. They are on Miss Liz's YouTube channel, so you can watch them in 5 years from now if you want. And you want to just have that moment of hope. You can listen to Vivian's story again in 5 years from now, because that's where it'll be. It'll be on Miss Liz's tea time. But I want to just share a couple of comments that are coming in, and Adam has joined us from the UK, so I'm just going to pop up a quick bunch of his comments here, just so that we can. So, good evening, you amazing individuals. Cinderella had that self belief as she acknowledged her self identity. And that is true. Cinderella knew her identity even before she found her Prince Charming. And I think that's where Vivian, you really understood who you were as a little girl, even when you came to Canada.
yes. Liz, I also think my mother has a little bit to do with that, because my mother always taught us to believe in a dream, even though we were everything, nothing but destruction. But she's always said, believe in a dream, hold on to your dream. And she always pointed out the beautiful things, we need to pay attention to. So I think I was kind of wired that way from her.
But we get so much, right, from our elders. We look up to.
Yes.
Like for me, it's my Oma. For you, it was your mom. You know, and maybe your mom would have been about my Oma's age. So she passed away in 2006. So, but I mean, we pick up these messages along the way of ancestries. Do we want to take those stories into the future? You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah.
like for me, it's tea. For you, it's champagne. We always have a different story, but our stories are similar. But it's the story within ourselves that makes the difference. So I want you to give a message to the little girls that are out there that are thinking of Cinderella's story, the Prince Charming, all of that goodies. So what message would you have for the little girls out there?
I would say put your best foot forward, and always apply yourself, and always cling to hope and believe that better is coming, and plan out your life, have a dream, and follow your dream freely, pursue it freely, and apply
Absolutely.
yourself. When you have it, when you reach your goal, apply yourself and manage it well.
Now, before we wrap up your tea time, because we still have a couple minutes left, Vivian, I asked all of my guests this question: what is their favorite color? And you gave me the color white. Why the color
Yeah.
white?
I don't know what it is. To me, it's very calming. It's very calming, not distracting. I look good in white, in all light colors, number one. And also in my home, I like light, neutral colors. It's calming. I think maybe I see a purity in it. I don't know,
Oh, I
but
like
that's
that word purity, because the innocent child, the unimportant girl, the connection,
perhaps,
the
yeah, maybe
alignment.
this goes deeper. Perhaps it goes deeper. Yeah, I just, that is the way I felt. Yes.
And you already gave us your one word earlier in the show: gratitude. Your gratitude
I'm
for
all
tea.
about that. Yeah. I
Yeah.
would suggest everyone be grateful for any help you get in your life, whether that's large or small. And also tell people what you think of them when they're good to you. Tell them what you think of them. Tell them the good things. Don't wait until they are gone. You know, so I think that's very important too.
Yeah. Well, and I like that you mentioned that, Vivian. Tell them now before they are gone.
Yes,
When they're
yes.
gone, yes, they hear you with the higher power, the higher energy to spirit. Because I'm very spiritual as well, Vivian, and I believe, pray to whatever makes you strong, you know. But us telling people after they've left us that we love them is too late. We need to
Yes.
start telling
And
people when they're here.
yes, yes. And that's why I did that with my husband. He turned 80 and I was able to thank him and he fully, this book was written for him and it made me feel good. And I thought I can't give enough back to him. I do my best to be everything for him. And this was just an extra thing. It's a nice thing. It makes me feel good that I got to do that.
Well, and that's the gratitude and saying thank you for saving my life, right?
Yes, yes, for believing in me and
Yeah.
and believing in the seeing the potential in me, which he saw. So I think that is, I'm very, very grateful for that. And gratitude is something that we all need to practice. We need to practice for the simple things. When people think, well, what should I be? They might think the ordinary things, well, they're just ordinary things. I get up in the morning, I have my shower, I have I have my bed at night, I have my food on the table. Well, that's not to be taken for granted. These poor people in the Ukraine are being shot at and they have no heat and think about that, not enough food. Think about that. And we have it. We are wondering, should we fix goose or should we fix duck or filet this Christmas? Think of the choices we have. There's so much to be grateful for.
Well, I love that you say that, Vivian, because we take so much for granted. You know,
Yeah.
it's like you said, like Ukraine. And you had mentioned earlier in the show that the Ukraine war you feel that the similarities are there from the Hitler war, you know?
Yes.
So
Yes.
that must be hard for you as well, knowing that there's another war going on where you
Yes.
escaped from one, you
Yes,
know?
it upsets, for instance, upsets my husband very much because he is also, he's from Germany and his father had to leave everything behind. They were well off. They had to leave everything behind, lost everything. And, when they fled the eastern part of Germany, uh, they were taken prisoners by the Czechs, and they spent in a labor camp. They spent half a year in a labor camp. 13 people. seven of those were his family, and the other were people that he didn't even know, in one room with a bucket to do your business and some potato peels that you could throw on a stove. And so that, all these memories come back to him, and he's very upset about this. And it's just so sad that history repeats itself. But let's learn from this past. Let's
Exactly.
keep the memory alive. So for our young people to understand this is not the way to go. And let America reunite, because there's strength in unity. All this division is not a good thing.
Exactly. Let's bring humanity back. Let's
Yes,
stop with the destruction and corruption, and let's bring humanity back. And that's what Tea Time is all about. It's bringing people together around the globe. It doesn't matter what race you are or where you come from. Everyone is welcome, and everyone has a tea within themselves. Because the tea is actually within ourselves. It's the inner child. It's the inner person that lives within us. You call it whatever you want to call it. Ms. Liz has her inner child. I have my little girl. Vivian has her little girl in her, and we have overcome things. But we're here today to show that it can be done, and you can make a difference, and you can improve your life. Like you said, you knew destiny as a little girl leaving Germany. You knew that you were going to have a good life in the future because you knew you weren't going to give up.
let's also, Liz, play the right thoughts in your mind. You know, play, manifest your life.
Right?
And you may not always get it. First of all, not at the time when you expect it, and you may not never get it, but you get part of it if you put your best out. You will. It'll come back to you. It's just the law. You put it, you attract goodness. It's the same thing when you are a positive person. It's amazing how you attract people. How you
Exactly.
attract people. People want to be around people that see hope and light, instead of people that only see gloom and doomsday. Who wants to be around someone who only sees gloom and doomsday? It drags you down, and
Yeah.
you can become what you think. You become what you think. You actually, those are not empty words.
Yeah. You need to change the mindset.
Yes, yes. We are our own master, and
Exactly.
self-mastery comes through will.
Exactly. So I want to thank you, Vivian, for joining me on Tea Time today and sharing your story. And for anybody who would like to know more on Vivian, check out her website. Her books are there. Her podcast is there. Give her podcast a check. I know I'm going to be checking it out and seeing what goodies I can find on there. And I want to thank all the viewers and supporters and listeners who have joined us today for Tea Time. I really appreciate that. And we all can make a difference when we change the mindset. We all come from struggle. Every one of us lives through something that another might not understand. But I want this year and this season to be powerful stories, powerful change, and powerful mindset of making a difference. So I want to thank you, Vivian, for joining me. I want to thank you again for all the listeners who do support Miss Liz for the last 3 seasons. We are in season 4. Now we do have one more tea time today. That's right. We're doing 3 tea times today. So we have Jennifer Landell that will be coming in, and she'll be talking about sword fighting and horseback riding and 17th century novel, all of those goodies. So we have different topics, but they all resonate with one another because they all are part of the past, and they all are part of the present, and all going to be part of the future. And these tea times will be the future. So thank you again, Vivian, and thank you. Any final words
Thank you
before
for
we wrap
having
up?
Thank you for having me, Liz. It was a delight and a pleasure to speak with you and get my message out there. Yeah, I wish everyone the best life they can have, but you've got to take the first step. You have to
Absolutely.
initiate it.
Well, thank you so much. And for anybody that wants to check out this movie, when is this movie coming out, Vivian?
Well, it is currently at the film festivals, entered into the film festivals, and as when that is, when it's gone through the film festivals, then it will be released on, I think, on YouTube. Then it'll be out on YouTube. So far, it's only the trailer that you showed, but it is a rich in verbal and visual data. You know, it is very interesting, and I think it will also, my hope is that it will make people have more empathy because they see, you know, there's so much emotions, you know, so much that people, the survivors, have gone through and have to deal with, and I hope it will develop empathy as well.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you again, Vivianne, for coming to Tea Time. It is an honor. Don't leave. I'm just going to close the live up. And I want to again thank everybody for joining. And I do see your comments, and I want to thank you for those comments. And we will talk soon. But we will be back at 7 p.m. tonight for the final tea time of Miss Liz.